Hey guys, how's it going? All right, this is a little clip from Many Buddies. It was last week. It's malicious prosecution of George Zimmerman, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it.
Other wants people to sign a petition calling for the feds to investigate attorneys and other people who he says went after George Zimmerman maliciously.
And I hope that the White House does. I doubt that they will, because remember, any investigation into this case that makes the Trayvonites look bad is going to make the president look bad, because, well, he's like the Trayvonite in chief, right? He's the guy that started this whole thing, or at least led to it.
Valerie Boy joins us now with more. Valerie?
Bob, Robert Zimmerman Jr. says right after the shooting there was a PR campaign to ruin George Zimmerman's reputation.
He could say it, and a lot of people will deny it, but the facts are the facts. I could sit here all day long and take little clips from the internet, from YouTube, to show that what he said is absolutely true. I don't have the time to do it today, but everybody knows all the clips with Natalie Jackson and Crump making horrible statements about George, calling him a murderer and all these other things without any of the facts or evidence. In fact, Crump had been caught lying about the case, about the injuries. He knew about the injuries but said that they didn't exist. And, later on, of course, we found out they existed. We saw the pictures. But before that, he had access to the pictures. So he was lying. And the Bar Association has certain rules and regulations that lawyers have to follow in order to maintain their license to be a lawyer. One of the rules is that they're not allowed to make comments that are knowingly false about a ongoing case. The fact that we've proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that he made false comments about a case, information that he knew was false when he made the statements, should be more than enough to disbar him. Anything after that would be criminal in nature. He should definitely be tried and face criminal charges.
Fabricated by people looking to gain attention in the case, and now he'd like a federal investigation into whether his brother's civil rights were violated.
They were absolutely violated. There's no doubt about that. His right to a fair trial has been denied. There's no doubt. And it wasn't the government that denied him his rights. It was people like Crump and Jackson and the mainstream media. Everyone has a right to free speech, but when that free speech causes issues for individuals, then that free speech can be denied. These people that lie about George are going to be facing troubles. They're going to be disbarred and possibly criminally charged. Even an individual like myself, I don't have the right to say something about somebody else that might hurt them in some way if it's not true. Let's say, for example, my neighbor over here is a thief, and I've seen him stealing at the store 1,000 times, and I know he's a thief, and I tell my neighbor, another neighbor, hey, this guy's a thief. Well, that's true, and if it's true and I can prove it's true, then there's no problem in saying it. But if I say my neighbor's a thief and other people hear me say that, and because of that statement he loses a job or for some reason has some sort of financial loss or some sort of issue, he can sue me for that. And there is absolutely plenty of penalties. So we have to be honest. We have to say what's true. When Crump said that George had no injuries to his face or head, when in fact he did, and it was absolutely proven, then Crump was lying to the American people. Millions of Americans heard him say that. Remember when the video came out from the police department showing George getting out of the police car and going into the police station? And at that time, everybody, all the media was saying, look, this is proof that George had no injuries. You can see, look at the pictures, look at the video. There is no injuries to George's head at all. And immediately after that, they interviewed Crump and asked him about it. And he said, this is proof. This is absolute evidence that that George was lying, that he never really got hurt. So I have the clip of him saying that. I also know that quite a bit before that, he had access to all those pictures, all the information that we have now that show George all beat up, bloody face, and all the other evidence, the witnesses' statements and all that other stuff, he had access to it. So, by lying, he made George look bad. And a lot of people that saw those statements on the TV have not been able to clean those statements up. Now, in their mind, this will always stand. In fact, we still hear today a lot of commenters saying that George had no injuries, even though we have the evidence and the pictures, because they heard Crump, and they've locked that in their head, and that's what it's going to be for the rest of their life, that George had no injuries. And now we have to pick a pool of jurors out of this millions and millions of people that saw George or saw Crump lying on TV about George's injuries. Sure, at some point we might be able to resolve it and fix it and teach these people that George actually had injuries. The problem is, once people become biased in their mind, it's really hard to get them to come back. So because of that, I believe that Natalie Jackson and Benjamin Crump will be held responsible, and they will be disbarred, and very likely will face huge fines. I would like to see him spend some time in jail, but you know how that works. Only the poor people end up in prison. People like Natalie and Benjamin, they have all kinds of rich people on their side, and believe me, there's a lot of rich people that are supporting the Trayvonites, and they'll do whatever they can to defend the bulldog of the case, Benjamin Crump.
He is not a murderer.
Robert Zimmerman Jr. continues to defend his brother George, and this time he's using an online petition to gather support.
The malicious part of the stories they told in the beginning that even made a prosecution like this possible. I don't think that this should have been prosecuted.
And that's so true. Without all of the malicious statements that were made on TV, this would have never come to fruition. This case would have not happened. But because of all the false statements by Crump and Natalie Jackson and others that I'm going to not name right now, I think everybody knows who they are, because of those statements, this whole case started. In fact, the police had said no case. The DA's office said no case. So we had to get the president involved, and then we had to get the governor involved, and we had to stir all these feelings and say that George chased down a black kid and shot him in cold blood. Chased him down and shot him in cold blood. They don't want to talk about the fact that George was walking back to his truck when Trayvon cold-cocked him out of the blue, jumped on him after knocking him to the ground onto the concrete, bashing his head on the concrete, broke his nose, and George is screaming out for help for over 40 seconds. We don't, where is Crump talking about that? Show me one video clip where Crump says, well, we have this information and it may or may not be true. Like a regular lawyer would say, give out the overall picture and then say, we disagree. We don't think that he was really hurt, but that's the evidence that's showing so far. No, he didn't do that. So, unfortunate for him because he's going to pay the price.
One of many created on the White House website, allowing citizens to speak out about their concerns. Robert Jr. says a man named David from California created this petition asking for a federal investigation into the malicious prosecution of George Zimmerman. While some Trayvon Martin supporters question the credibility of the creator,
of course the Trayvonites question the credibility of the creator because that's all they have. They can't look at the facts of the case. In fact, they don't look at the facts of the case. If you look at the statements made in the comment sections of my videos, very seldomly are they interested in the facts of the case. They're interested in the race, the skin color, stuff like that. A few of the regulars do comment on the facts of the case, but as soon as you point out that their facts are wrong, then they'll move on to some other facts, or they'll twist and turn, and it constantly revolves around the same thing. According to them, George should not have got out of his car, and the fact that he did meant that he should have forfeited his life when Trayvon jumped on him and started beating him to death. If George would have just laid there and let Trayvon beat him to death, then this wouldn't be a case. Of course it wouldn't be a case because George would be dead.
Says the message of the petition is important.
It had more to do with promoting a self-serving agenda. There's also some political interests.
Yeah, a self-serving agenda, political, that's right. Because you've got the racists on one side and the gun grabbers on the other, and in fact, they're both one party, because the people who push racism are basically, in general, people who benefit from racism in politics. So you can figure out who those people are. I mean, all you got to do is look. I'm not going to say it. Then, of course, you have the gun grabbers, and every opportunity they get. I mean, if there's a shooting in a theater or any kind of thing like that, you'll see it all over the news. But you won't see anything about the positive sides of guns. Like, let's say, for example, a lady uses a gun to save her life as some guy is trying to kill her in her house. The chances you're going to see that in the news, on the newspaper, or on TV are slim to none. But if you hear about a guy that shot some guy in a car because he was playing his music too loud, and it happened to be opposite colors, you'll only hear about it if the shooter is white. If the shooter is black, you won't hear about it. Believe me. Trust me when I tell you this. You won't hear about it. But if the shooter happens to be white and the guy that gets shot is black, you're not only going to hear about it, it's going to be posted all over the place, which goes to prove that the media is racially biased. You know, most of them are white, but they have an agenda, and the agenda includes racism, and they need the black racists to be completely outraged and upset to increase their polarizing power. They want to separate the races. They want to separate the genders. They want to separate people, because the only way you can conquer is if you divide. Everyone knows conquer and divide. And this is divide and conquer. This is how it's done. And this is what's happening in America today. We're dividing. We've got the races divided. We've got male and female divided, and it's all thanks to the media.
Something being afoot or political motivations.
He says it was wrong for Trayvon Martin's family attorneys to insinuate that his brother is a racist murderer.
I think Benjamin Crump and Natalie Jackson laid a foundation for that to be able to happen.
Both.
Not only did they lay the foundation, they were the mouths. They were the ones that made it happen. They got out there and said, because of America's racism, a black boy was shot by a white man named Zimmerman. And no one's going to do anything about it, because America is a bunch of racists. The police are racist. The DA's office is racist. So we need to get the White House involved, because, of course, the White House and the FBI are not racist. So after they did their investigation, the FBI found there was no racism involved, unless, of course, you want to look at the racism from the side of Benjamin Crump and Natalie Jackson. Sure, there's plenty of racism from that side. But George had no racism in his heart at all, and we've proven that. But, of course, the Trayvonites will never accept that, because they've already made up their mind. They made up their mind the day after they read about it, because they're so easily led around by the mainstream media. That's why they're anti-gun and pro-racism, because it fits the bill. They've already been fed the line of crap, and they're eating it up, and they love it, so they can have it. But for me and my friends and people of all persuasions, black, white, women, Chinese, whatever, we're not accepting it. We're saying, you're idiots. You're idiots if you suck this up. Go ahead, eat it up.
Jackson denied acting malicious towards George Zimmerman. We talked to Benjamin Crump over the phone.
Everything that we did, I feel, was certainly appropriate, because there was going to be no arrest of the killer of an unarmed kid.
Yeah, good thing he put in that little disclaimer. I feel. We did everything right. I feel. You know, he knows he did something wrong. And now he instead of saying the murderer of a black kid, he's saying the killer, because, you know, that's okay. You can say, because he did kill him. Let's scroll that back a couple notches here.
Appropriate, because there was going to be no arrest of the killer of an unarmed kid.
There was going to be an arrest. There was going to be no arrest of a killer of an unarmed kid. That is just ridiculous. you would think that this guy is a lawyer. He would know the law. He would understand that Florida's had stand your ground for 7 years. And here he is making these statements that he should be charged. He should at least be arrested after standing his ground. It's obvious that this guy knows more than all the police, than the entire DA's office. He's just so knowledgeable. All you got to do is listen to him speak, and you'll know how smart this man is.
It's a true tragedy.
They say they never called George Zimmerman a racist murderer.
We said from the beginning, we don't know who he is, don't know anything about him other than the fact that he shot this unarmed kid.
In my eyes, in my family's eyes, George was a victim of a heinous assault.
Robert Jr. says he needs 25,000 signatures to get the attention of the federal government. Right now, he has around 70, but plans to work hard to collect more.
It's my hope that we get to that. I think there should be consequences.
Yep, there should be consequences. And Crump and Natalie Jackson and a whole bunch of the other people that were involved in the media should be held responsible, and they will. They will. I mean, if there is any justice left in this country, of course, at this point, a lot of people doubt there is any justice in this country, along with the reliability of our elections and et cetera, et cetera. Over time, people are losing faith in our society. And if somebody doesn't hold these guys accountable for what they did to George, then less people will have faith in our society. More people will lose faith. For Crump to say that he never called him a racist murderer, well, I would spend my time and go back and post a whole bunch of these comments from him. But everybody knows what he said. And the fact that he's denying it now is just comedy.
And George Zimmerman's attorney, Mark O'Mara, has said that he's using social media to defend his client and protect his reputation. To see the petition, go to myfoxorlando.com.
So it was a good thing. George's brother sticking up for him. David set up the petition. Of course, we know that the White House has control of the petitions, and if they want, they can just knock off as many people as they want. It could 50,000 people could have signed the petition, and they could just pop them off if they want. No one would know because it doesn't show if your petition vote was counted or not. There's nowhere where it has your name listed to say, yes, he voted yes. But it's my point that Crump and Jackson definitely should be held responsible, at the very least be disbarred. They should never step foot in another courtroom unless it's as a defendant. And I would say that should happen pretty quickly. George has a civil right to a fair trial. And what they've done, along with the media, is illegal. And it definitely will be responded to. The people of America will not allow this to continue. We're about sick of the race baiters, the gun grabbers, and the people that are trying to take away our rights. They're constantly trying to grab our rights because they seem to think that we're unable to deal with our freedom just because they can't deal with their freedom. Look, if you can't handle freedom, go somewhere where they don't allow you freedom. Cuba is just down the road. Why don't you go to Cuba? Why don't you go to, if you really, really don't like freedom, pick some of the more, the less free countries. Like, you could go to China and live there and just do whatever. They've got free health care and they'll take care of you. All the things that Obama is supporting and pushing is leading us to communism. We're moving towards the USSR. At some point, if we keep moving in this direction, we're just going to be a photocopy of what the Soviet Union used to be. And then at some point, we'll crumble just like the Soviet Union did. Because as the Soviet Union found out, you cannot control all the people. They can't even control the drugs flowing in and out of the country. How are they going to control the guns? And we know that now that Obama has his second term, that gun control will be on the front burner. The right to self-protection, the right to defend oneself, all these things, the Second Amendment. So as soon as they start messing with the Second Amendment, it proves that they are treasonous. If they want to take away the Second Amendment, that's treason, and they should be hanged. A nice tall tree. Anybody that wants to take away the Second Amendment should be expecting a rope. That would be the correct way. That's what our founders had set up. That was the proper way to handle things. When people start leading us away from our founding principles, the founders expected us to hang them. Anyhow, it was really good talking to you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.